I'm Alex.
And I'm Dani.
And we're seriously nerdy
about miniatures.
When I found out that Miniverse was breaking into cocktails, I just about fell over. It immediately became my mission to collect all of these sets and create a home for them. Now, if you remember the Fallout sign, you may remember that we rated this shadow box for its cork background, but today, the shadow box is going to become a mini bar. I started with this generic shadow box and stripped it down so that I could really customize it. I used sheets of MDF board to create a little shelf that's going to be the counter of the bar, and then these very heavy-duty sheets of metal that will be a magnetic surface that I can create an interchangeable bar surface on. That means that I'll be able to create different environments like a grown-up dollhouse, except instead of a dollhouse, it's a bar. After getting all my components glued in place with heavy-duty epoxy, I took it outside for a quick base coat of black on the interior and pewter for the exterior. After that, all it needed was to reattach its hinges, knobs, and latches so that it was back to working cabinet condition. Now, the inside of the cabinet is going to depict all sorts of different environments, so I wanted to make sure the outside was rather plain and would lend itself to whatever theme the inside was going to convey. And because everything's magnetic, it means that I'll be able to mount shelves, artwork, lighting, and move everything in and out interchangeably. My first version of the room is a generic kitchen using these Mushroom House miniature glasses. I actually started this project before I owned any of the Miniverse cocktail kits, so the first version of the room is meant to be a very generic, neutral kitchen setting in preparation for the very themed cocktail bars that will follow. I used Tinkercad to quickly model up these pipes to give the kitchen sort of an industrial look, and again used Tinkercad for these shelving units. After 3D printing everything up, I applied magnets into the predetermined areas using CA glue. Now, in the category of things we learned along the way, I started this project using these cube-shaped magnets you can see here, as well as coin magnets. But it turns out the best type of magnets that I've found for this type of build are actually bar magnets. They're long rectangles. They've got a little bit more surface area so that they adhere to the walls a bit better. So this will probably be the only time you see me use coin and the cube-shaped magnets. But one type of magnet you will absolutely see me use in the future are these magnetic sheets from Zazzle. Now, they're intended to be dry erase boards, but I had them printed with different textures of marble so that they look like countertops, and as a bonus, they are already magnetic and will already stick to my surfaces in the minibar. For anything that does not come pre-magnetized, all I had to do is use adhesive magnetic sheets on the back of papers to create wallpapers and counter effects. With all the lessons from the neutral kitchen, it's time to move on to the fun part, which is creating bar environments for these happy hour cocktails. First up is the Lavender Gin and Tonic. Now, this is going to be the inspiration for the entire first bar environment, but this is how the capsules themselves come. So they include glassware, UV resin, and accessories to make 2 tiny 6th scale cocktails. So to create a themed miniature bar environment perfect for the Lavender Gin and Tonic, I was inspired, of course, by the color lavender and variants within the blue and pink color schemes, but also the botanicals and florals that you would find inside a Lavender Gin and Tonic. So we're thinking pinks, purples, blues, and florals. Just like with the standard kitchen environment, I started in Tinkercad and created these double-decker cabinets that will flank either side of my bar. After 3D printing them and gluing the top to the bottom, I used adhesive cardstock to wrap the entire cabinet structure. This masks the 3D print lines and also provides a really smooth surface for the cabinets. I designed these without floors to the shelves with the intention of adding plexiglass later so that light can cascade from the top of the cabinet to the bottom, but I did pre-design in these ledges so that the plexiglass has something to sit on. Installing individual sheets of adhesive cardstock was definitely the most tedious part of this build, but what it meant was that I was able to have complete control over 6 scale cabinets in the color scheme that I wanted, and as a bonus, they had pre-designed slots for all my magnets. MGA's Miniverse Happy Hour Series 1 contains 12 different cocktails in this set, so in theory, this Lavender Gin and Tonic is the first of 12 individual themed bar environments that I'll create for this shadow box. Hopefully by the end, I'll have a kit of parts, all sorts of different magnetic components that I can use to mix and match and create even more new themed environments. Because the shadow box is designed with plain walls and just a small ledge that mimics a countertop, it can be transformed into all sorts of different environments that really allow the 6-scale miniatures to shine. Along the way, we'll get to challenge ourselves to create brand new objects in 6-scale, like this 3D printed glassware holder. I created this really simply in Tinkercad just using the dimensions of the Miniverse martini glass, and we'll put a link to it in our description if you want to print your own. And just like everything in this mini bar, it will be magnetic and repositionable. Coming off all of our learnings from the Fallout sign, we also thought it might be fun to try to create a miniature neon sign for our bar environment. Our two biggest learnings for this one: make sure there's sufficient room in the back of the neon sign to hold whatever type of battery pack you'll be using, and use Adobe Illustrator to do the layout in your text because it can tell you exactly how long your line is to ensure that the flexible filament will wrap from start to finish. It took a little bit of trial and error, but in essence, we built this in 2 pieces: the front part where the text lives and the back part that houses the battery. We started in Adobe Illustrator and then brought the components into Tinkercad to make them dimensional, and then we 3D printed them. Because the 3D prints already have the channels, all we really have to do is run the flexible filament through the gaps and wire it up. It takes a little bit of advanced planning and of course some comfort level in Adobe Illustrator, but the electrical component of this is super simple. You can wire the flexible filament directly to a coin battery pack and call it done. One thing I didn't foresee is that the predetermined magnet channels that I designed were much too wimpy to hold the weight of the sign, so I ended up supergluing additional magnets. As I was planning for this project, I started many Pinterest boards about bar environments that I like and what makes them special, and it kept coming back to lighting. Lighting is such an important element in any environment, and I knew that some themed lighting could help bring the bar setting to life. So to create my miniature mood lighting, I used these little LED lights and tinted them with some colored UV resin. For my Lavender Gin and Tonic bar, I made both pink and blue lights, but actually ended up only using the pink lights. The blue lights may make an appearance in a future bar. After the UV resin had set completely, I adhered a little magnet on the back, which means that these lights will be repositionable anywhere around my bar. And as a bonus, because the coin batteries are very easily accessible, I can replace the batteries at any time. Okay, now it's time for my Miniverse happy hour hack. The kits come with everything you need to make 2 adorable tiny cocktails, but the catch is you make the cocktails inside of the tiny glassware they give you. Now, I am seriously nerdy about cocktails, which means I want the ability to make lots of different types of cocktails inside of the miniature glassware, and that's where this hack comes in. I'm essentially going to make a mold of the interior of the glass and be able to make cartridges of cocktails that I can move in and out of the glassware. You will need a couple things to do this. The first is baked clay that I used to cast the inside shape of the glass, and then 2-part silicone putty that we're going to use to cast a mold of the glass itself. I used some cornstarch to keep everything from sticking and some isopropyl alcohol to remove that cornstarch, and the end result is a mold that's the exact shape of the Miniverse cocktail glass. So basically, I can use the mold to create cocktails that I can pop in and pop out of the glassware. So not only will I be making the Lavender Gin and Tonic, but I can make a standard gin and tonic or a gin fizz or any other cocktail I can think of that I'd want to display in a highball glass and not have to worry about it being stuck inside the glass itself. The mold allows a lot of freedom and experimentation and creativity because you don't have to stress about your end result being permanently stuck inside your glass. So I was able to play around with lots of different cocktail types, different textures, different crafting materials, just to see what worked and what I liked. Now, because the sides of this mold are not transparent, one thing I did discover is that you want to give it additional UV cure time just to make sure that resin gets completely set. This mold method is also great for the standard Miniverse happy hour components because you're ensuring that everything is set exactly the way you like it before it goes in the glass. And there you have it, how to make interchangeable cocktails that slide perfectly into Miniverse happy hour glassware. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you'd like to see our future builds. And without further ado, let's take a look at the final footage of the minibar.